Hi, y'all, and welcome to another exciting episode of Down Home Dirt, the show where we dive deep into the journey of entrepreneurship with those who took the plunge and all the ups and downs that come with it. Today, we are joined with Bethany from Copper Creek Counseling, and I'm so excited about this because we're going to be talking about mental health, which I think is a huge thing when it comes to being, well, a person in general, but being an entrepreneur too. So, welcome and thank you.
Hi, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
I am so excited about this because it's something that I feel like we don't really touch on the podcast, and I'd like to dive right into it. So let's talk about mental health.
Let's do it. We all have mental health the same way we all have physical health. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And so
So,
one of the things that I always tell people too is, you have to get a coach whenever you're becoming an entrepreneur, and life coaches are good as well, but you got to take care of your mental as well. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up in the triangle.
sure. Well, I'm Bethany Lindemuth. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm the owner of Copper Creek Counseling, which is a small mental health practice in Holly Springs, North Carolina. Um, what's the question?
How did you end up in the triangle?
I spent a very long time in the Pittsburgh area. And during COVID, I was working in a hospital and life was just kind of falling down. And I thought I could live anywhere. Like, why am I living somewhere where it's so cold and snowy? And so we chose to move to Raleigh just as an adventure, and the warm weather and the nice people and good economy, good healthcare, good education. And it's one of the best decisions I've ever made. Very happy here.
Absolutely. And I giggled a little bit because today is one of those weird days that we're getting snow when we normally don't.
Well, I can handle like an inch. Having like 3 feet is that's enough.
In my entire life, have never seen that much snow. I'm from Florida and I moved here because I was like, oh, like it doesn't really snow. It'll be fine. And the first year I moved here, it was, pretty like 12 inches, which was more than enough for me. I was like, okay, I can deal with that. More
Mhm.
than that, I don't know how anyone does that. I'm going to be honest.
Just do what you have to do.
Right. So let's talk about your decision to open your own practice. What was your ready moment that led you to do that?
Well, I've worked in the mental health field for, a long time, 20 plus years. I've worked in domestic violence. I've worked as a legal advocate. I've worked in women's shelters. I worked in the schools community for a while, community mental health. A large part of my background is working in the hospital systems, doing medical social work, and then inpatient psychiatric and outpatient behavioral health, as well as outpatient therapy, which is what I'm doing now. So when I moved here, I was working for an agency and realized that I really wanted more autonomy and more ownership over what I was doing, as well as being able to make ethical decisions about how my business operates and how I and the business interact with clients, and making sure that that's being done in an ethical manner. I'm really passionate about ethics. I'm on the North Carolina NASW Ethics Committee, which is a lot of fun. So yeah, I think ethical reasons, and then also just having ownership and being able to make decisions and make it to be client centered, where I can meet my clients where they're at and I can solve problems right away and I can help them with what they need without having to wait for the board of directors to meet once a month and get an answer and get approval for things. I can just make decisions on my own, and I love that.
Navigating the system is very hard as a person who has had their insurance switched several times, and it's hard to find somebody who takes your insurance. Can you talk a little bit about navigating that and being able to find someone who is a good fit for you?
Yeah, I mean, so there's two things, right? One is trying to find someone that takes your insurance, because we all like to save money and we want to use the health insurance we have because most of us spend a lot of money on it. So that's one part, is the insurance side of it, finding someone to take your insurance. And then the other side, which I could argue is more important, is finding someone that's a good fit for you, that's going to be able to, you're going to feel comfortable with, you're going to be able to talk to, you're going to be able to trust. That's really the biggest predictor of how well people do in therapy. We call it therapeutic alliance. If you trust your therapist, you're going to get a whole lot out of it, and it's gonna really empower you and help you to make changes. So these two things are kind of happening at the same time. Then you also have to find a therapist that not only is a good fit for you, that can, address the issues you're having, but also, do they have availability? Do they have openings? Are they virtual or are they in person? Because a lot of people are tired of virtual. They want to come into my office. They want to sit in front of me in a therapeutic space. And that can be tricky too, right? Finding someone that has openings, because that it's just difficult, right? There's a lot of things to navigate through. The insurance side of it, can make things very difficult on my side anyhow. And the client side too, because you have to get credentialed with insurance companies. That takes a lot of time. It could take up to a year for me to get credentialed with an insurance company. That's a long time, right? The
Yeah.
insurance companies benefit by not having providers, because once they credential me, I'm going to see their patients and then they're going to have to pay out money. So they make the process very difficult. And then I get to submit claims to insurance, but the insurance company can deny it and give me a reason or no reason. They can delay payment and kind of put it off, make me appeal. That takes a lot of time and energy, either me or I have to pay someone to do that. And then the insurance company a year from now can go, oh, we're taking your money back. You forgot to cross this T on this one claim from a year ago, so we're just going to take back our money. And that's problematic as a business owner, that they can just do it. So the insurance game can be very frustrating from my side. So I take a couple insurances because that felt really consistent with my social work values of helping people get access to care and use their insurances. But I don't take all of them because, one, it's really hard to get credentialed with them, and I don't necessarily make enough money to survive if I take some insurance companies. They just don't pay enough for me to pay my bills, and they can take the money back.
That can be really frustrating. I actually went to school for medical billing and coding, and I got the job. I did all that fun stuff, and I worked there for 2 weeks before I realized that it's not something that sat right with me, that they had us go in there and scrub claims. And I was like, this does not feel like a good thing. So needless to say, I started my own business because I was like, I think I need to have a little more control.
Yeah.
It can be scary too, especially when you meet a therapist that you like and your insurance either changes or doesn't pay. And so that can be very hard to navigate as a person who loves therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone should do it. I think even if you're doing it just for maintenance reasons, I think it's great because you need someone who's non-biased to check in with and make sure that you are on the right path and to guide you on how to deal with things, because life is really hard.
Life is hard and it's messy. Research shows that people that do maintenance therapy and just go once a month for years and years, that they do better in life. They're happier, they sleep better, they're better, they can lose weight, their relationships are better. There is research that having ongoing therapy is helpful and improves people's quality of lives. So totally agree.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I've been in therapy on and off since I was 18. I started like the day I was 18. I was like, we're going to do this. And I started going, and it took me a little bit to kind of figure out what therapist worked for me. It started out with a couple of them just kind of asking me how I felt every time. And I didn't really think that that was working for my needs. So then I found this amazing therapist who met me on my level. And by that, I mean, I swear a lot. I don't swear on the podcast, but I swear in real life. And so I would go in there and I'd be like, F this and that and the third. And like, and he'd look at me and he'd be like, so why the F are you doing that? And I'm like, um, we understood each other. So could you give us some pointers on how to figure out if you're a good match with your therapist?
How to figure out if you're a good match. I mean, I think in some ways you just know, right? You meet people and you either vibe or you don't. I always encourage people to, if when you meet with a therapist, right? If you've gotten to the point where you're like, this therapist I think is a good fit for me, to meet with them 2 or 3 times to really get a good feel of, is this a person that I want to work with? Is this a person I want to dig deep into things with? You can do research ahead of time on therapists of what's their background and what do they work on. What kind of things are they specialized in? Most people will choose a therapist that looks like them. Really interesting, right? So, white blonde people will look for a white blonde therapist the same age as them. People of color want someone that looks like them. People tend to want someone that's the same age that looks similar to them. It's really interesting.
That is interesting. I guess it's because, like, especially like in dating, sometimes you're the same way. You want somebody that you can relate to that kind of grew up in the same way that you did. So they can be like, oh, I know about that. I tried to once date someone who was 4 years. It was only 4 years younger than me. And we grew up in two totally different worlds. Like, different cartoons, different foods, different everything. And I was like, wow, you don't really think that 4 years makes a difference, but it does.
Yeah.
So,
So, and sometimes there's benefit in having like an older therapist that maybe takes on like a grandmotherly or grandfatherly role. Some people are kind of looking for that. I think it's just the vibe. I think it's probably just the vibe. Does this person just feel like someone I can talk to?
no, I agree. Because if it like, that doctor, when I met him, he gave me the power, in my opinion, to be who I want to be authentically, because that's, I think, a very important part. Your therapist has to let you be you in order to work through all of the stuff that you have to work through. And he really empowered me to make me feel like I could do things in life. And he was an older man, so maybe I see that he was more of a grandfather than my age.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, there can be benefits, but
I was gonna say, he even helped me with, I needed new tires for my car, and he was like, "Oh, if you go to this website," like just dad things, and I was like, "This is great. I loved it."
uh, well, therapists are people too, and we like to help. So, okay.
So let's talk about some of the things that you think are really good about therapy, and like the reasons why someone would come and seek you out. What are your background?
Mhm. Well, I'm mostly a generalist, meaning I see a lot of different kinds of things, right? The majority of people that find me are have anxiety or depression. They're going through a grief or a loss, sometimes divorce, a life transition, retirement, sometimes new parents, right? They're like, I need to check in with someone and make sure I'm okay so I don't like mess up my kid. I get a lot of that. And sometimes people are just like, I just feel stuck. Something's off in life and I'm not happy. And there's nothing necessarily going wrong, but I'm not feeling like myself. I'm not feeling like I'm really living life. And so sometimes people come in and they're like, help me figure out what am I missing or what's off in my life.
Hmm.
And that can be a lot of fun, right? To help people figure out like why they do what they do and what's happening in life that's feeling off. That's a fun part of my job is to help people make sense of their lives and make sense of why they do what they do. Often that goes back to childhood, and I'm not, super Freudian, but the way that we're parented during childhood, during our formative years, has a huge effect on how we operate as adults. So the way your caregivers interacted with you has a huge impact on how you interact with people in your adult life. And often my clients have a difficult time with that. They're like, I don't understand why something that happened at age 10 is still affecting me at age 40. But it's wired into us during those formative years.
I will agree on that 100%. My daughter pointed out something that really was like interesting to me. And she said that anytime I talk about something, it always comes back to my mom. And I started to realize that like everything that happened in childhood is somehow related back to something my mother did, some terrible mistake she made. And it still affects me to this day. I drink occasionally, but I took a long time of not doing it. And I met with a therapist 2 years ago, and they had mentioned that I can't make up for my mom's mistakes, just by not drinking. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. Drink.
Sure.
I need my coffee today. I got my snowman cup. It is snowing outside. And I'm getting the studio painted. So lots of things going on today.
Mm-hmm. It's a good day.
It's a great day. I'm super excited about this podcast because one of the things that I feel like we never really talk about is the mental health side of it. And that's kind of why I started the podcast, is because I felt completely alone in my journey of being an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed someone to talk to, and not necessarily a therapist, but somebody who was going through the same thing that I was going through. So I began reaching out and talking to them and being like, hey, this is a problem I faced, an entrepreneur. Like, how did you deal with it? And that's kind of where this whole thing got sparked.
I love
And
it.
I was so excited about that. So that's why I wanted to have you come on and like talk about it. Like, what are some, I want to call them warning signs when you feel like you should see a therapist?
Well, can I back up just a little bit, right? Because when you talk about wanting to talk to other people that get it, that've gone through it, life's about connections and it's about relationships. And we as humans are wired to connect with one another. And I think entrepreneurship can be very isolating if you let it. And so I love that you are putting effort and being purposeful about connecting with others. You recognize that it was something that was not going well for you, and then you did something to make it better. So I want to acknowledge that. That's super great that you did that. So good job.
Thank you.
Well, what was the question then? What
Uh,
reasons people would come to see a
Right, like
therapist?
some warning signs. Like for me, I needed to feel like the connection. When I went to therapy, I needed to make sure that I was doing the right things. Just different warning signs for my own self. Are there any basic ones that we could give listeners so that they can go, oh, I feel like that's me right now. I should probably seek help.
Mhm. I think, if you're not taking care of your basic needs, right? If you're not brushing your teeth, if you're not showering, if you're not eating well, if you find yourself sleeping a lot and can't get out of bed, or you're waking up in the morning and just dreading the day every day, those would be problematic things that maybe you should talk to someone. So that for sure. But people would be like, something's missing, something's off. I'm not happy. I have my spouse, I have my kids, I have my job, and I'm still just not feeling fulfilled. And therapy is something that can help people figure that out. Certainly, if you're having thoughts of wanting to hurt yourself, that would be a absolute red flag. You should talk to someone. That absolutely, safety is our first goal.
No, absolutely. And I think that too, as an entrepreneur, you should just do, like you were saying, maintenance monthly check ins, because that is something that kind of we as entrepreneurs sometimes sweep it under the rug. We're like, oh no, like we'll take care of ourselves after everything else is taken care of. And I think it's especially in women too, not just entrepreneurs in general, just women. We do that. And I know that that's something that I tend to do myself. So making sure that I catch it before it gets too out of control is definitely one of those things I need to make sure I check on.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think daily journaling or some kind of like check in with yourself of how are things going? How am I feeling? How's my body feeling? Right? If I'm achy and tired all the time, like what something's happening there, right? That needs to be addressed. And checking in with friends and making sure that you're having those relationships and that you are interacting with people and getting your social needs met.
No, I agree with that because that's one of the things that just as a general person, a woman in general, I don't always check on those relationships. I don't always do the things I'm supposed to do. Sometimes it can be overwhelming, and that's another thing I feel like is a sign. If you start to feel like really overwhelmed, you need to talk to somebody to sort it out. You should do that. That's where I came in with this podcast, and I was like, "Oh, I'm going to talk to my friends essentially, and we're going to sort it out right here on the podcast." And we've gotten a lot of good response from it. I just feel like it's missing the other parts to it because you've got education. I've been teaching people about different resources to help get their business started, but I think we should focus on the people now. So you mentioned you had some soapboxes that you wanted to stand on. Can we dive into those?
Well, I mean, I have lots of soapboxes, things I could rant about. Insurance companies is probably the big one, right? This insurance game that happens. That's probably my biggest soapbox at the moment.
You're like that one. That is it.
Um,
So let's talk about how you ended up in Holly Springs. You said you have an office out there.
I have an office in downtown Holly Springs. It's on Raleigh Street, so it's a little side street, but right downtown. My building is accessible with a ramp and an ADA bathroom. It's a cute little cozy space. The goal is that people feel warm and welcome when they're here, as well as being accessible for anybody that needs to come into the building. Having the in-person space is really important to me. I think video during COVID was great and really helped a lot of people, but I'm finding that most of my clients are wanting to come in person, right? They want to come in, they want to be in a therapeutic space. They know what it's going to look like. It looks exactly the same every time. If I happen to move something, they will be like, what that picture? What that picture wasn't there before, right? They hate it when I change anything. But the therapeutic space is important, right? Because what happened in COVID was that people were at home in their bedroom talking about childhood trauma, or they're talking about these big issues. Well, then the brain associates their bedroom with this trauma, and that is not good for anyone, right? Bedrooms are for sex and for sleeping. They're not for trauma. So having a place to come in person was really important to me. I like in person better. I think I'm a better therapist in person, and I find that my clients are really looking for that. So I pay extra money every month to be able to provide that because it's important to me.
I agree. I think that COVID really made everyone's home their everything space. And I think that a lot of people post COVID were like, I'm selling the house and I'm moving because I can't deal with this anymore, me included, which is why we're painting today. It just became everything. It's where we learned, it's where we got into arguments with our spouses. It's like, it was just everything. And so cleansing that space and getting a new one some kind can be really helpful for your mental health as well.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Don't let things like the economy or, the housing market sway you, because I think your mental health is a little bit more important than things like that. It's kind of what I'm dealing with now. I feel like it's important to get rid of things that no longer serve you.
I mean, yes, figuratively and literally, our
Yes.
environments play a huge role in how we're functioning emotionally. I use sometimes I use the analogy that, I'm a really good therapist, right? I've done this a long time. I got all the degrees, all the stuff. But if you filled my office with spiders, I am not going to be a good therapist, right? That the environment matters. I need to get those out of there in order to really be good at what I do. And for a lot of people, their houses or their offices are just, there's clutter, and it's just not working for them. So therapy can sometimes be, how do we kind of unclutter your life? How do we get rid of things? Are there people in your life that are sucking energy from you and aren't working for you? If you have those people, you can have some of those people, right? But if the majority of people in your life are just always needing things from you and sucking energy from you, you're going to feel depleted. You're not going to feel good, and you're not going to be able to show up for the other people in your life that you really want to be able to show up for. So sometimes in therapy, we talk about, okay, you keep talking about this friend and like they're not nice to you, and they sounds like that you're not really getting much out of this. Like what's happening that you're spending so much time and energy on this friend, and giving people permission to, like, you can distance yourself from people a little bit without just cutting off people. And a lot of what I do is help people kind of find those boundaries of, who do I want in my life? How much do I want them in my life? Are they giving me energy? Are they sucking energy? Are they serving me? And if not, yeah, how do you kind of set some boundaries of to keep your own self safe?
Boundaries are very important. It is something that I learned very early on in business, is to set them, because people will literally just bulldoze you down if you don't have them. And that came with work-life balance. It came with the idea of everyone is not my client, because at first when you start a business, you feel, oh, everyone's my client, I can help everyone. And that's where you either get burnout or you get past burnout, which is ash out. And that's what I like to call it, when I am just like, I can't do it anymore. I'm done. I'm so done. So I definitely think boundaries are very important. Something that I feel like I need to work on probably daily, mostly because life changes daily, right?
Sure does.
So maybe I need to like practice my boundaries every day, but that's something I think is very important. So if anybody listening, if you're really weak on boundaries, you're not going to do well in business and that, or in life, because that's how you end up in situations that do not serve you. And that's just coming from experience.
Yeah, in therapy we have a saying that boundaries preserve relationships.
Hmm.
Boundaries preserve relationships. That if I just say yes to you all the time, I'm going to get resentful and annoyed and irritated, and it's not going to be a good relationship, right? Whether it's a friend or a coworker or boss or whoever. If I have very poor boundaries, it's not good for the relationships. We think it is, right? But most people, we'd like to help, we'd like to give, we'd like to, especially those of us in helping or serving professions, right? We really enjoy helping people, and I want to help all the people, but I can't help all the people, and you can't help all the people. So figuring out who are the people that you can help and that are going to leave you feeling good and leaving them feel good. And the people that you're not the right person for, then let's refer them. Let's give them some names of some other people that can help them, and then everybody wins. And that's,
Absolutely.
it can be uncomfortable to tell someone no, or to say I can't help you, or I'm not the right person, right? That feels confrontational. Humans avoid confrontation. Most of us don't like it. We'll do anything to get out of it. And so it's a lot easier to say, yes, of course, I'll do this thing for you, than to feel confrontational by saying, you know what, I really can't help you. And then part of therapy is teaching people to be assertive, right? To not be aggressive, not be passive, but to assertively communicate, this is what I need, this is what I can do for you. I can't be all things for all people.
No, that's great. I love that because that is actually something that I have a hard time with is saying no. And I will literally pay anybody to do it for me. I'm like, can you tell them no? I'm here's $5, just whatever. Like, so my best friend, she works for me part time, and anytime I need somebody to be told no, I'm like, here you go, you do it. That's on you. So sounds like I need to work on that.
Yeah, so remember back in the day when you had like those punch cards for stores where if you like bought 10, you got a free one?
Hmm.
I want to make punch cards where every time you say no to someone, you get a punch. And at the end, after you say no 10 times to someone, that you get like a special treat. Like it's a way to motivate people to like, okay, so not only is it okay to say no sometimes, but it's actually good for you. And look, after the end of it, you get to go get, at Starbucks.
Absolutely. That's a great idea. I think I'm going to create my own now so that I can be like, I need to say no 10 times.
I think you should. If I knew how to make an app, I'd make an app. That someday I'm going to learn how to make apps, and that'll be my just say no app.
That would be so great. You have no idea. I'd be in it every day. I said no.
Nancy Reagan would be so proud of me.
Oh, that's so great. I love it. Sorry, I'm a little laughing so hard I cried. That's great though. And so like what are some good boundary phrases that you would use to say no? Like mine always is I can't help you with that, but I know someone who can.
Yeah. Well, I think about boundaries as like I have a fence around my house, right? And there's a gate. So I get to choose, because it's my house and my fence, when I open the gate and who I let in the gate, and when I close it and when I ask people to leave, right? So boundaries don't necessarily mean always saying no. It might look like, 'cause sometimes I have clients and they're like, my parent calls me every day, wants me to take her to the store, wants me to come immediately. And if I say no, they have a meltdown. And so for that, I'll say, all right, well, instead of saying no, I can't take you to the store, a good boundary would be, I can take you to the store on Wednesday. I'll pick you up at 1, right?
Just redirecting when you can.
What you can do for them. And so you're not saying no, you're just saying, this is what I can offer you, and you can take it or not take it, but this is what I can do for you. Does that make sense?
It does. Okay, I like that one. I'm going to start doing that. Like I can't do that now, but I can do it here cuz
Yeah, here's what I
sometimes
can do.
yeah, sometimes in like business, I have clients, I have a cleaning company. I don't know if you're aware of that. And sometimes they will wait until I show up to ask me to do extra work. And it took a good hard lesson of learning that to say, if you don't tell me before I show up, I cannot help you.
Mhm.
So now that's what I tell them. If you don't let me know ahead of time, I do not have the time to help you.
Yeah.
And then that way it looks like I'm not saying no necessarily. I am, but I'm saying it in a kinder manner because I think that sometimes we as people think as no as like this automatic, terrible rejection, negative thing.
Yeah. So a boundary there might be, I need 24 hours notice. Here's how you can tell me if you need extra things done, right? Here's a form or text me or whatever. If you give me 24 hours notice, absolutely, I'll be able to do that for you.
Yes, and that's something we instituted a couple years ago because around Christmas time, oh my, I would get these requests and I'm like, honey, I can't do it right now because I have two other clients that I've got to get to. So we instituted that a while ago and it was like just absolutely game changing for me because it went from me feeling like telling them no was some kind of like a rejection to me telling them no to feeling where I feel okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes when I say no, I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but I just always feel so bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you care about people and you want to help them. And I think you're really good at helping people. So it probably comes really naturally to you. But if you try helping all the people all the time, you're gonna feel like garbage. And you're important and it's not good for you to feel like garbage. We want you to feel good.
No, it sounds like I need to go to a therapy session. I haven't been in a while, guys. Just kind of been doing my own thing out here in the world, and it's not helping right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I do need to make sure I make an appointment and check in and make sure that I am on the right track and I'm saying all the right things.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about this healthcare situation right now with the getting therapy. You had mentioned a little bit about how sometimes it's hard with the insurance. Do you accept self pay? Is that something that you are also willing to do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so currently we take Aetna insurance, the North Carolina State Health Plan, MedCost, and I take Medicare. And then anybody that has a different type of insurance, we can do private pay, where, and this is really some places only do private pay, right? And part of that is if you come to see me and you use your health insurance, the health insurance company can ask me to see the notes that I write. So they have access to a lot of really personal information. And for most people, not a huge deal, but also like I take people's private health information and the stuff they bring in to be very important. It's confidential. I don't let anybody see anything unless I absolutely have to, and you're going to subpoena me. But health insurance companies can have access to all of your records. And not everybody wants that. And because of this, I am very cautious about how I write my notes. So I am succinct. I make it very generic. I don't put a lot of details. I'm not going to explain your whole trauma. I just might say, discuss trauma, right? As a way to limit who has access to it.
I think that's very good because I know that I've gone to a therapist and told them a lot of really deep stuff that I don't really think anyone else needs to know. So I appreciate that you do that. You protect your patients. It's very important because a lot of people just here, I want my money. Here you go. I don't care. And that's not okay.
It's not okay. And most therapists are doing the same thing I'm doing, I think. We're cautious about who has access to it. But ethically that's really important to me, and it's your private stuff. It won't leave my office again unless I'm subpoenaed. Please don't subpoena me. I don't want to go in I don't want to go in court, but it's private stuff. The you know if someone comes in and says that they're homicidal or suicidal, then that overrides that confidentiality, right? I have to, if there's child abuse, if someone's actively wanting to end their life, or if they're actively wanting to end someone else's life, then confidentiality goes away. I have to tell people. But that's few and far between. It doesn't happen very often. Otherwise, what you talk about in my office stays here. Nobody else knows about it.
No, that's good. I was only mentioning that about how people want money because when I was working in the medical office administration, when I was doing the billing, they would hand us their entire chart and we have to read this whole thing. And sometimes there were notes in there that were unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I shouldn't know this about this person. Like this is not appropriate.
Uh, it's your private record. I think one of the benefits of being a small practice like we are is that I don't have to share notes with anyone, right? I'm not part of a hospital system. I have a lot of control over what I do and what happens here in my building and who has access to things. And I love that. I love being able to make sure that clients are getting what they need and doing it in an ethical manner and meeting them where they're at.
That's really good. And that's why I say all that, because I was working for somebody who was over like 7 different hospitals.
Mhm.
And so it's like, you got to really think about where your information is going. And with all these data breaches and everything, it's very nice that you are you and that there isn't a whole big system behind it. So people can feel more confident in sharing things with you and hopefully healing, making sure they're on the right track.
Yeah. And there's benefits to the larger places too, right? They have a lot more resources, they have a lot more people, they have a lot more weight when it comes to insurances. I don't have all of those resources. So, I mean, there's something to be said for both. I'm not saying don't go to a larger place. But the thing that we can offer here, one of the things is the confidentiality piece of it.
Which is very important. Even in my own business, I have a confidentiality agreement that basically states that obviously, unless someone is being harmed, I don't say anything. I don't take pictures. I didn't see it. It doesn't happen
Yeah.
because I want people to feel comfortable with me in their homes.
Yeah. You're in their space and they're inviting you in and trusting you. So I'm sure they appreciate that.
Absolutely, because it's one of those things. When I'm from Florida, I used to live there. We had some big clients who really wanted their privacy. And so that's kind of where this whole thing came into it, was like thinking about how someone would feel if I'm in their home and they're a famous rock star. And I'm like, oh my God, look at me. I'm on Facebook, or what is it? TikTok, social media. That's the word I was looking for.
TikTok is still here. It's still going.
Yeah. And I wanted to make sure that I covered all of those bases, and all my employees, they sign saying that they obviously agree with that as well, that they won't do that too. So just kind of, I love the idea of protection. I guess that's my whole thing.
Mhm. And I appreciate that you are like authentic and genuine. I'd like to point that out too, that you just are, you show up how you are and you're authentic. And I think that's a really great way to present to the world.
Oh, thank you. I have worked really hard for a long time to just be myself. And that is one thing that I encourage everyone to do, because I was someone else for a very long time and I didn't like that person.
Well, and despite all the things you've gone through, you're still up and going and doing all the things. And, that's because you've been purposeful.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And, I mean, that's therapy can help people with that too, right? If they're like you feeling how you are feeling, if they don't like themselves, they're not really being authentic. Sometimes in therapy, I just say to people, like, I give you permission to do this or to be this way or to do this thing, or I give you permission. And that could be really empowering for people to feel like it's okay to do something.
Yes, speaking from a person who literally sat in a therapist's office going, I don't like me, which is something else I just kind of want to clarify, is that you don't go to therapy so somebody can tell you you suck. You sit there and tell the therapist that you suck. And then you're like, work through it all.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think that's what you do. You're just sitting there, you're like, all right, tell me. Oh, okay. No, you're telling them the reasons why you think that you need help or things to work through. I definitely want to remove that stigma.
Yeah, well, it's a back and forth, right? I mean, if I just sit and don't talk at all, people don't like that, right? They can talk to themselves without me. And finding that, giving some feedback, doing it in a constructive way, and then letting a lot of the time in therapy, people talk, I give them feedback, I question, I push a little bit, I pull a little bit, and then they figure it out on their own as they're talking. They're like, oh, now that I hear myself say it out loud. And that's really fun, right? To see people make connections and make changes. When I was in high school, I had said to people, everyone's like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I want to be a social worker and I want to work in mental health. And everyone I knew said, don't do it. You're going to be sad and you're going to be poor. And this is the worst choice you could possibly make. Do not go into social work. And so I listened because literally everyone told me that. Went to school initially in chemical engineering, Turns out I am very bad at that. Like, really not not my thing. And then I randomly took this social work class called Post-Soviet Societies and loved it. And then I was like, you know what? Like, I don't care what all you people say. Like, this is really what I want to do. I want to help people. I love social work. That is a really wide field. You can do lots of things with it. And a lot of what social workers do is give people referrals and connect them with other people and really empower them to make changes. And I'm not poor and I'm not sad. I really love what I do. I really love helping people. I really like helping people make connections and helping them figure it out and make changes. It's really rewarding. And there are days when it's very challenging, and there are days when it is sad. But for the most part, I like what I do. I feel like I'm making a difference. My clients tell me I'm making a difference. And that's really rewarding. So, I don't know what the life lesson here is for maybe younger people, but if there's something you want to do it, right? We only live this life once, and only you get to choose what happens in your life, for the most part, right? As adults, right? We make choices. And to not be afraid to do what you want to do, right? I mean, we get one life, or well, we live this life once anyhow. So doing what you want to do is important. I, right? Look at COVID. I mean, the devastation of pandemic. One of the things it taught me is, one, that things can change very fast, and two, that like, do what you want to do, because who knows what's going to happen next. Like, don't limit yourself.
I literally needed to hear that today. You have no idea, because I am about to embark on a journey that I haven't told anyone else about. So,
Okay.
and one of those things but making a career change is something else that you should absolutely seek a therapist for, to make sure that you feel confident in your decision, because it goes up and down, just like being an entrepreneur. It's like, I feel good about it. No, I don't. I feel great about it. I'm going to do this. No, I'm not. I like calling it talk therapy. Is that appropriate? Where you just kind of talk it out?
Yeah, that's mostly what I do, is talk therapy.
Okay. And just like, hey, I'm going to make this decision. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to rock it. So I really needed to hear that today, because now I feel even more empowered to make the decision
Yeah,
to start over. It's hard to start over.
it sure is. But the hardest things are usually the ones most worth doing.
I agree. And I feel like I'm finally ready to make that huge career change from, one area. I'm still in the same field, but just doing a different thing.
Hmm.
So I think that it's going to go well, and I'm very confident in my decision.
Well, good for you. I love it. Yeah. In therapy, when people come in with those decisions, it's not my job to tell you what to do, right? Because I'm not you. I don't walk in your shoes. I haven't lived your life. I don't know necessarily what you should do or what's best for you. My job is to walk alongside of people and to question them and be curious. And all right, well, what are things that make you want to do this? What are things that make you not want to do this? What's getting in the way? Is it your fear? Is it anxiety? Because if it's fear or anxiety that's getting in the way and running things, and that's why you're making choices, then that's a problem, right? Like, we want you as a person to be making choices for your life and not letting fear, anxiety run things, because a lot of people get into that situation where it's scary, and so it's a lot easier sometimes to just stay where you're at and not rock the boat. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be living your best life, right? What's the saying about, ships can stay in a harbor, but ships aren't made to stay in a harbor. They're safe there, but ships are made to go and sail and see the world.
Interesting. I'm gonna write that somewhere so that I remember it, because I'm not meant to stay in one place, and neither are you, and no one is. So live your best life and make sure you're getting out there and making decisions that are appropriate for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Um, on the topic of anxiety, when I first became a therapist, I was taught in school how to teach people to not be anxious, right? Here's all these things that I should teach my clients to do to not be anxious, coping skills, all this stuff. And then what they found was that people were still anxious. And then they felt like a failure, right? I did all this stuff Bethany told me to do. I'm still anxious. I can't even do that right. So now the mindset in mental health is that anxiety is a part of life. It's actually there to keep us safe. and helping people to learn to manage their anxiety and to be comfortable with sitting in discomfort and learning how to manage it and not let it run things, but paying attention to it. So that's a huge thing I've learned over the years is that the goal isn't to not be anxious, it's to learn how to manage it. And I see this a lot of times with parents where they'll come in and say, my teenager is anxious, right? The boyfriend broke up with her and, she's so anxious and I need to take this away. I need to do things so that she doesn't feel that way. And my perspective is, well, anxiety is part of life. Like they're going to feel that way. You cannot protect your kids from emotions that are uncomfortable. And if you could, totally, it's not doing them service. We as humans need to learn how to have uncomfortable emotions, how to manage them, how to relax our bodies, how to make changes, how to do things to make it better. But you can't avoid or eliminate anxiety from your life or your kids' lives. It's not helping anyone. And that can
No,
be scary. Like people don't necessarily want to hear that. They're like, no, I don't want to be anxious. Make it go away.
that would be me. But honestly, I realized something when I started healing myself and like not being in situations that caused me to be in fight or flight on all the time is I started doing I guess it went backwards where it was like, I'm not motivated to do anything without the fight or flight and the anxiety, which is terrible. So I learned how to manage both of those things so that I wasn't depending on one or the other to function.
Yeah, so sometimes when kids are brought up in a chaotic environment, they kind of like the crisis, right? That feels comfortable. That's their homeostasis. They know how to act when there's chaos and there's a crisis and everyone's upset and there's a bunch of conflict. That feels natural to them. And then what we find as adults is that sometimes when things are calm, those people will make chaos to get back to they like the chaos.
Guilty.
Yeah. So again, like, the way our childhoods affect us, they just do. And the fight or flight, it's a protective factor, right? Our brains, the brain's job is to protect us. And it does this by scanning the environment, right? Wherever we go, brains are scanning the environment. People with trauma backgrounds, they're always on high alert. Their brain is already like, we're in danger, we're in danger, we're in danger. So it's scanning, it's scanning, it's scanning. And they have a lot of difficulty with relaxing and being calm. So therapy can help with processing that trauma, but also teaching people how to calm down their bodies, how to self regulate.
Yes, that is one thing that being an entrepreneur, you're constantly dealing with chaos too. Just because your business could make $300 one day, or it could make no $100, and that is one thing that sometimes make us feel like, yes, I can do it, and it's up and down, which is why I highly recommend going and being a therapist, and making sure that you are good to go. Because a lot of people also, and this is just an observation, this is not whatever, this is my opinion, when you get into business, they can't handle it. And the reason they can't handle it is because it goes up and down, it goes up and down, and they don't know how to go within themselves and kind of like calm it and be like, it's ebb and flow. This is going to happen. And so that's just kind of something I've observed. And I've been in business for myself here in North Carolina for 5 years now. And because of my trauma background, I've been able to handle every single punch that's been thrown at me because I'm like, this is normal,
Right?
right? Like,
Right.
this is life, man.
You learned from a young age how to deal with stress, whether that's in a good way or a bad way, but it's not something to be afraid of. Entrepreneurship really requires some risk tolerance to be able to make some decisions that you don't know what is going to happen. You don't know what the outcome is going to be. You think maybe, but you're relying on other people that you maybe don't know well, or you don't know the system, or you don't know what's going to happen. And being able to tolerate that risk is really important.
I agree, and that's actually something that it took a little bit for someone to point out for me that I didn't realize that that was what I was doing. So I started the business. This was back in 2020, literally a month before the shutdown. I went and got my LLC, and I was like, I have no choice but to make it happen, right? Then we get shut down. And so to me, I took a big risk, but it didn't feel that way. It just felt like this was like natural to me and this is what I needed to do. And like I'm very thankful and happy to say, excuse me, that I am successful and that I have been
Mhm.
for the last 5 years. But to me, it didn't seem like a risk. It just seemed like a normal everyday thing. And someone was like, running a business and starting it is a risk. And I was like, what? Like, I've just never had those feelings. And I always thought it was because I was like a natural entrepreneur. I was like meant to do it, right? Which a lot of people can feel that way. And I totally understand that. But you're absolutely correct. Now that I'm in my normal frame of mind, I realize it is a huge risk. And there are so many things that could have gone wrong. I could have not been successful. I mean, just we could have been shut down for 100 years. There's like so many things now looking back. But at the time, I was like, nah. And here I am again, gonna take that risk. I'm a little more scared this time,
Uh-huh.
and that I shouldn't be, right? Because I'm able to like manage these things. I know what I'm doing to a certain degree. I should be
Why,
okay.
why shouldn't you be scared?
Because I've already done it.
Well, if you're doing something that feels scary, you're going to be scared. It's okay to be
True.
scared.
That's true. I just was like a little more scared than normal because I'm going back home to a place where like I do know people, but it's not the same home that I grew up in because it's Sarasota. Like it's changed every 2 days. And so like here I have a whole network, but when I moved here, same thing. I bought a house in 2019. I didn't know anyone when I moved here, and I started the business a year later. And now I have a huge network of people that I can go to and that I've met over the course of the last 5 years. And I don't really have that down there. So that's like a little bit of the fear that I'm feeling. But at the
Well,
same time, I got to remember like you've done this before. You're going to an area you already have some kind of information about. It's not like I'm going to Hawaii where I've never been,
mhm.
just as an example. And so it's okay to be scared. It's just don't let the fear take over.
Yeah. Well, it's normal and expected that you would have some fear. I would, if you told me you weren't scared, I question that. It's normal and natural to have fear and to be scared about things, but like you said, you've done big things in the past and they've worked out really well for you. So, you know, I don't have any reason to think that this is not going to do that. And if it doesn't, then you'll pivot and do something else.
Yes, that is something else that I talk about a lot on the podcast is knowing when to pivot because sometimes we can as people dig our heels in and we're going to see it through, it's going to happen and then everything starts falling apart. And you're like scrambling around trying to grab up all the parts and you're like I'm going to still make it happen. But I think that's where therapy would come in and you would talk to someone and be like, "Hey, if these things are falling apart, it's probably time to adjust your viewpoint and what you're doing."
Yeah. So a therapist might say to that, well, how bad does it have to get before you stop doing it? How, what would you be feeling? What would be happening that you would get to the point where you're like, I really just need to let this go? Like that would be what a therapist would, that's what I would say, right? It's not my job to tell you to stop doing it. My job is to say, like, what's keeping you doing it and how bad it sounds kind of bad. Like, how bad do you want it to get?
I love that. It's great. I'm going to start using that. How bad do you want it to get? Well, the answer is probably not as bad as it is currently, right?
If people are having panic attacks every day, well, okay, that's some information, right? How often, what, twice a day? Like how many panic attacks would you need to have before you said, "Hey, I need to stop this"?
That's great. So it sounds like a lot more questioning of what you're doing too. Instead of just saying, I'm going to make it successful, you have to start questioning how you're going to make it successful, why you're going to make it successful. And
Sure.
that kind of would lead you into whether or not you're going to pivot and which way to go. Because, like you said, it's not your job in order to tell me what to do. You're just going to let me walk through it myself.
Yeah, you ultimately know best what's good for you. I don't walk in your shoes. I'm not you. I haven't lived your life. I don't have your experiences. I don't know. I don't have your hopes and dreams. I have my own hopes and dreams. So you're the best person to make decisions for you. And
Absolutely.
you're fully capable of that. It's just sometimes those decisions are scary and you don't know and there's unknowns, and sometimes you just have to do the thing even if it's scary.
Yes, even if it's scary. I agree with you because that's a large part of life is doing the thing, even if it's scary.
Yep.
And some
Yep.
people kind of get stuck in that. I know that I did. I used to think that, oh, I'm going to go to school and I'm going to work for someone else and it's going to be fine. And then I realized that to me, it's more scary to give someone 40 hours a week of my time than it is to pursue my own happiness and my own dreams and have control over that.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
we all have to like weigh our risks, I think.
Yeah, for some people, they wanna work somewhere and that works for them. You and I think, are just cut out differently than that, and I like having ownership, I like making decisions, I like problem solving, I like if there's a problem, I can fix it, and if I have a policy or procedure and it's not working, I can change it and do it differently.
That's what I love about entrepreneurship is that we as entrepreneurs get to choose that. And that was one of the things that, working for other people, I couldn't fathom doing it their way because it didn't make logical sense to me. And I'd be like, but if you do it this way, it's more efficient. And so that's kind of why I've always really wanted to work for myself. I did in the past, I dabbled here and there, but it wasn't until I moved to North Carolina that I was like 2 feet jumping in, don't care, not testing the water.
Yeah,
And that's something that I feel like I could come to you and I could talk to you about mitigating any type of, anxiety and risk with that.
yeah. Well, and if you're able to take the time and make a logical decision and really think it through, that's better than waiting till it gets so bad that the decision's made for you, that you have to do whatever it is because you postponed, or you didn't make a decision or have a game plan already.
One of the most powerful pieces of advice that I ever got from that therapist I was telling you about that just resonated with me is he used to tell me that not making a choice was still making a choice.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it made me so
That,
angry. Oh, I was like,
that's called,
but yeah, you're not wrong, but why would you say that?
that's called the Hobson's choice.
Oh. Oh, it has a name. I still feel like I have so much more to learn.
Well, it's empowering, right? You can choose not to choose,
That's
but
true.
there can be downsides to that too. Not acting is acting.
Yes. And that is one of those things that, like, if you're not making a decision, sometimes it can be made for you and you don't have a choice. So I've learned the hard way to not do that. Make a choice before it's made for you, which is kind of something I do now in business and in my personal life. I think about it. I'm like, well, if I ignore this, how bad is it going to get? And what is the end result? And do I get a choice over that? And so that's kind of led me to make some pretty interesting choices. I don't know how much you know about me, but I left a domestic violence relationship and started the business to support myself and my children. I have 3 children, and so that's why I don't think it felt like a risk at the time because the alternative was worse than taking the risk.
Mhm.
And so I was like, and I talk very freely about it. It happened. It's what made me who I am today. So I'm okay with it as much as you can be. So
Wow. Yeah.
it's a lot. It's heavy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, good for you for making hard choices and doing what's best for you. And, you learn from it and you grow and you move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And like it was one of the hardest decisions that I felt like I had to make at the time. But looking back, it couldn't have lined up any better for me for my future. Like everything just kind of fell into place after that. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, had I not made this decision, where would I be? Right?
Mhm. Yeah.
It was one of those things I just had to like really overcome. And I talk about that because I don't want to like hide it from people. I mean, you can pretty much tell when you talk to me something's a little off. It is what it is. I do cry a lot.
What do you mean something's off?
I don't have normal experiences like other people do. I
Oh,
can't relate.
okay. You feel different.
Yes. And it's hard for me to connect with people
Okay.
because we have different like histories. Like I didn't marry somebody that was good for me. I've never had good experiences.
Okay.
Time.
I that quote that people think crying is weakness, but from the beginning of a life, it's a sign that we're alive, right? You want a baby to cry when it's born. It's a sign of life.
That is true. I never thought about that.
Mhm.
Because we do get panicked as mothers if we don't hear them cry immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. Crying is a sign of life.
So that's great.
And of being alive, I guess, is maybe what the saying is.
Can we talk about who your ideal client is? Like you said, you're accepting new patients. Who would be like your ideal client?
My ideal client tends to be women in their like 40s or 50s, right? Because I'm a woman in my 40s or 50s, in my 40s. And so though again, people seek the someone that looks like them and is familiar, looks familiar. So most of my clients are women in their 40s, 50s. And then I also see a lot of teenage girls whose moms are in their 40s and 50s, and they find me and say, I want you to see my daughter. So that's most of my caseload. I see as young as 11. I have a couple of clients in their late 70s. So, I have a pretty wide caseload and people with lots of different presenting problems. But what's really interesting is whether I have like a teenage girl or a 40-year-old woman or a 78-year-old man, they all come in and often say the same thing. They come into my office, they sit in the couch, the same couch, right? And they say, I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like my life's a mess. I don't have any confidence. I can't figure it out. I should have figured it out by now. What's wrong with me? Why are these things still happening? And so it's fascinating that people come in different ages, genders, races, and we're all people and we're all struggling with a lot of similar things.
We are. I agree with you on that. And just to kind of piggyback off that a little bit too, I don't think anyone knows what they're doing. I think we're all just out here just, I don't know, what do we do? And I'm glad to hear that you could be up to 70 and still feel that way because that's something that doesn't go away and that's okay to feel that way. It doesn't.
Yeah, no one ever really figures it out. And if they do, they don't figure it out for long. Are you familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
It is my favorite. Yes.
Okay, so Maslow, right, has this hierarchy of needs of the things we need as people to get met in order to, the ultimate goal is to self-actualize. And Maslow said, if you ever actually make it to self-actualization at the top of the period, you don't stay there. You eventually will fall back down and you have to not start the journey over, but you have to like keep figuring it out. So the goal isn't to self-actualize and be some enlightened creature and life is, sunshine and rainbows. It's figure out what's happening today, try to move forward, try to make progress and know that part of life is falling down and having to go through hard stuff and having to figure it out. And if we didn't have those trials and those difficult times, the happy and the joyful times wouldn't be as meaningful. It's just part of the human condition.
That's true. I feel that because sometimes I'm like, man, I can't believe this is where I'm at in life. And then I go and I'm like, but do you remember when you were, living here and doing this and it wasn't that great? And I'm like, oh, okay, no, I'm good. We're good. We're on track.
Long as you're moving forward, and that doesn't need to be linear, right? Sometimes there's offshoots, and sometimes we take a few steps back before we take steps forward. But as long as you're moving in a forward direction, then you're doing okay.
I constantly remind myself life's a cha-cha. So if I take one step forward and two back, it's totally fine. It's just like throwing in a dance move.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, dance it along.
Gotta have, what is it? You have to have the right mindset in order to like be able to be an entrepreneur sometimes. Like it's not easy and it's not for everyone. And I'm
Mhm.
realizing it the more that I do this podcast, I'm like, wow, there are people from, all walks of life, all backgrounds, but the one thing that makes or break these entrepreneurs is their mindset. and like how well they deal with things and things of that nature when it comes to business. So because
Yeah.
you can
Well,
get pretty hard. You can get hit
I
pretty
think
hard with it.
yeah, I think entrepreneurs, we need to be mindful and purposeful, and we need to keep focusing on the goals and moving forward. And sometimes those goals change and you have to pivot and figure it out. But it's also fun, right? I mean, I enjoy the experience of entrepreneurship, of figuring it out and doing things I've never done before, right? There's so many things I never thought I'd be able to do that I've done. And I've done as a woman, right? Like a lot of the people I interact with in the business world are men, and they seem a little uncertain that I'm a woman doing all these things. So that's kind of fun too.
What are some of the common challenges that you have faced being an entrepreneur and being a woman entrepreneur in your field, and how have you overcome them?
I think people are often surprised that there's not a man next to me, right? I think they're kind of like, okay, well, where's your husband? Like, like, where's the man here? And so I think they're a little surprised when it's just me. I have a husband; he's fantastic, but he's not an entrepreneur. So I think maybe just in general, they just feel a little bit like, who is this lady, and well, what is she doing? And I love to ask questions, and if I don't know something, I'll ask. And sometimes I think that puts people, it surprises them maybe, or makes them a little bit uncomfortable. But I just keep doing the things, and if I don't know something, I Google it, or I ask someone, or I figure it out, or try to make connections and ask other people that have done it before me. But uh,
I will agree
yeah.
with you on that. I ask a lot of questions because I have ADHD and I'm just like, I want to know why. And one of the things that, again, here goes back to my mom, she hated when I asked why. And I think that a lot of it is because she couldn't answer the question versus like just being annoyed that I was asking. And so to this day, I still ask why. It's why for everything. If you tell me
Mhm.
I have to do something, the answer is why. If you can't
Uh-huh.
give me a good answer, I'm not doing it.
Mhm.
And so I find that to be a bit challenging for other people who just want you to just do it or
Mhm.
don't want to go into the reason why, like when it comes to running your own business.
Mhm. I mean, I like to know the why, and I think, you're curious. You wanna know, and curiosity is a sign of intelligence as far as I'm concerned.
Your therapy, I just realized something when you said that. Okay, you know what? Yep. So thank you for that realization. If I'm intelligent and she can't meet that level and she's got her own issues, then that's where the conflict comes in. So it's not necessarily me being a pain in the butt, it's other issues that are underneath.
Probably, and that's the beauty of therapy, is that I didn't tell you that, you figured it out.
Yes. So highly recommend you guys go see her because look at this. I've had an entire therapy session. I figured out a lot of things, realized that I'm on the right path. So, and this took, about an hour. So thank you very much. So tell everybody where they can find you. What is your website? I'm going to post it all in the comments
Mhm.
below, but just if they're listening and they can't look real quick.
Sure, we're downtown Holly Springs, North Carolina. The address is 128 Raleigh Street, Holly Springs. Our phone number is 919-230-1229. And the website is www.coppercreek-counseling.com. The dash is very important, coppercreek-counseling.com.
Thank
And
you.
I made the website myself, so please go to it and check it out. And if you have suggestions, let me know, because I didn't know how to make a website before this, and now I know how to make a website, and it's decent. So check it out.
I love hearing that because it is a learning experience that you get by being an entrepreneur that otherwise you may not ever get.
Yes. Well, and shout out to my daughter Emily, because she helped with the website, and she also made my logo. And so that's been really fun to see her as a teenage girl really like be involved and help me with some of these things. So shout out to her. And my son is helpful, and my husband's been just wonderful help as well. So but yes, check out the website. I made it with the help of my daughter.
I love that. Family affair. And that's something else that we're just going to, real quick, I'm going to touch on is that your family, when you're an entrepreneur, tends to be unpaid employees against their will that they can't quit. Because my daughter's the same. She started this business with me. We've been together. We did the podcast together. We've just been doing it all together. And she supports all of my dreams. And I really needed that. So shout
Yeah,
out to our families.
absolutely. People need people.
We do, honestly. So thank you very much. Is there any words of wisdom that you want to leave our guests with?
Oh gosh, words of wisdom. I think do the things even if they're hard.
Exactly. Do the things, even if they're hard. I love it. Well, thank you guys for another amazing episode of Down Home Dirt. We'll see you next Tuesday.
Bye everyone. Thanks.
Bye.